Well, welcome everyone to the Monsoon Twilight briefing. Thank you to FB Rice for hosting us here once again. So my name's Mark Pachacz, I'm from BioShares. I'm editor of the BioShares newsletter. It's been going on for 23 years, and I noticed recently that for a drug we wrote about in edition 1 recently got approved, the one from Chris Burns and Andrew Wilkes. So that's how long I've been doing this for. So we're being recorded here today. We're going to have 3 companies present, quite different companies, so better have your thinking hats on. They're going to present for about 15 minutes, then we'll have some Q&A, so I have some questions for them. Now I had a couple of them are Perth-based companies, or were, but they're now no longer based in Perth. The CEOs are in New South Wales and Melbourne, but I had some Perth jokes, which I was going to say, well, they've come over here to collect their #1 draft pick, Hailie from last night, but and well, they've come here for some good coffee. I don't know, but I can't say. I just got to throw all those jokes out the window. Anyway, so welcome. So difficult time for biotech still. I've been saying the same thing for a while. Everyone knows it's been pretty tough out there, but I think we are starting to see some signs of a bit of movement in the sector. If we look at some companies like Lumos Diagnostics, which shooted up about 1,500% on some FDA approval. A couple of weeks ago, Imugene was up, I think, by about 200% or so almost on some phase 1 data. So I think it's been a bit of a bruised and battered sector. But this sector does tend to go in what I believe are 5-year cycles, having sort of followed for almost 23 years, 24 years. And Jeremy from IB Bioscience Managers, sort of I was saying to him in the lift that he agrees that it does tend to follow these sort of, broadly speaking, 5-year cycles. And if that's the case, then the last cycle started 2020, then maybe we're a year away from the next uptick. So perhaps sometime next year, we'll see some an uptick in the sector, and with interest rates plateauing in the US and possibly declining in the next move, that may prompt some interest in this space. So get set for your biotech companies, get to know them well. So the first company is Arovella, which is involved in CAR T therapy. Now we're going to have Michael Baker talk to us about Arovella. Michael joined Arovella in 2020. It was previously based in Perth. Michael's now based in Melbourne. Second person today that I'm talking to who was an investment manager or analyst and is now working in the biotech sector. So please welcome Michael.
Do you have the little clicker?
It's just on the right.
Oh, great, thanks. Great, thanks, Mark. Thanks, everybody, for joining us today. It's great to have you here. It's a lovely day outside, so I appreciate you taking the time to be indoors listening to us. And I'll go quite quickly because we do have only 15 minutes, and I would like to take the time to answer some questions. So I will be making forward-looking statements, so please do note the disclaimer. And I'll start with the highlights of the company. We are working on an invariant natural killer T-cell platform, and I'll explain what that means in a moment. But in short, it gives us opportunities for targeting therapeutic or cancers like blood cancers as well as solid tumours. Our lead product is called ALLO-101, which we're hoping to take into the clinic next year. We do believe that our iNKT cell platform addresses unmet needs that currently plague the cell therapy sector. We have assembled an exceptional team, both at board level and management level, with a lot of experience in drug development, particularly cell therapies. And the way we've built the company is through a series of strategic acquisitions for IP, which were taken from some of the best research institutes and universities in the world. So we do see that for all those reasons we are in a unique position as one of a handful of iNKT cell companies globally and the only in Australia. So let me quickly touch on cell therapy and what it is and why we're excited by it. So CAR T is what it's probably more affectionately referred to, and I'll explain why we're different from that in a moment. But in short, this has enabled us to use the words cure and cancer in the same sentence, which is a lovely place to be. And the reason that we're able to do that is that patients have taken these therapies experimentally and beyond and are living more than 10 years cancer-free. So not surprisingly, the revenues have picked up already for the first approved products. And of course, we're seeing that this is going to be an enormous market, predicted to be more than 60 billion by 2030. Notwithstanding, 40 to 60% of patients that do take these therapies do relapse, so it's not curative for everybody. just a very quick example. This is a young lady, Emily Whitehead, that took the first CAR T dose experimentally as a pediatric patient more than 10 years ago, 11 this year actually, so she's now still 11 years cancer-free, which is remarkable. So how does it actually work? And just I want to make it clear here, this is really the ultimate personalised medicine. So imagine on the very far right, we're dealing with Emily Whitehead's blood. So it actually comes from the patient. You can see in the top right, we take Emily's T cells. They get genetically reprogrammed in the laboratory somewhere, and I will point this out. On the surface of the cells, we have what's called a chimeric antigen receptor, or CAR. And think about that like as a beacon or a homing or a guided missile that will actually direct the immune cells towards the cancer and trigger their destruction. They get grown up into the millions before being injected to that same patient from where they actually started from. So this is important. It starts from the patient and finishes with the patient. So we believe that actually poses a significant challenge for the sector. So on that top right scheme, top left on your side, so we see that it's one therapeutic for one patient, okay, and that's really ineffective from a supply chain and logistics point of view. And what it does is it means the dose costs about $500,000 per person US. So we believe that that's problematic, obviously, and I'm sure payors will believe the same. In addition, because we're taking it from the person that's seen the cancer or chemotherapy, their immune cells generally aren't doing that well, so we have a compromised starting material. And also, not all treatment centres can actually manufacture these therapies. So there's a lot of patients that will actually be eligible to take the therapy and they don't actually receive it. So what we're working on is our iNKT cell platform, and this is the hope that we have a single donor, a very healthy 25 to 35-year-old person. We take the starting material from them and we're able to make the drug so we can actually give it to multiple people. So another disadvantage of CAR T is because it's made just in time. It takes about 4 to 6 weeks to make it on average. People are working hard to bring that cycle time down. Irrespective, what happens is patients can actually die while that therapy is being manufactured. So again, not an ideal situation, versus if we're able to pull it out of the freezer, we believe that's a great place to be because we can give it to a person in hopefully less than a week so they're able to take it if they're eligible. So what is it exactly that we're looking at? And as I said, it's iNKT cells, and it's invariant natural killer T cells is the full name. So this is just a handful of immune cells in that diagram that people have studied in relation to our immune system. So T cells on the top right, NK cells in the bottom in purple. They've been the most well studied, and what we're interested in the middle there is the iNKT cell. So they're naturally occurring immune cell in our body, but why we're interested in them is they don't cause what we call graft versus host disease, which means they don't attack a person once they've been given from one person to another. And this is what enables us to create the therapy from one person and give it to multiple people. In addition, they are the front line of the immune system, so they naturally work to remove infectious diseases and also certain cancer cells. They cross both sides of our immune system, the fast-acting and the more durable immune response, and they actually naturally target cancer cells that have something on their surface called CD1D. So in addition to that, they actually have a range of other anti-cancer properties as well that we think are quite important for solid tumours. So I'll skip over this because it's a diagrammatic form of what I've just said. And just looking at the manufacturing advantages here. So as I said, we start with a healthy individual. We collect their iNKT cells, we take them to the lab and genetically reprogram them, and then we expand those up into the billions. So now we've got lots of these iNKT cells with the CAR or the guided missile. They get stored, frozen, ready for use, and that when a patient's ready to take it, they'll be thought out and utilised. So again, big advantages we see are it's healthier starting material because they haven't seen cancer or chemotherapy. It is scalable, so we have multiple batches or multiple doses per batch. It gives patients faster access to the treatment, and because they're stored in a freezer, there is no opportunity for manufacturing run failure. So very quickly on the commercial side of things, looking on both sides of the slide here, we've got T cells and NK cells. So these are a snapshot of the different players in each of those spaces. There are hundreds of companies and thousands of clinical trials ongoing. And looking in the circle in the middle, this represents the total iNKT cell landscape worldwide today. So we're one of a handful of players working on this particular immune cell type. So we do see that we've carved out a really important niche in a very exciting area of cancer research. So let me just talk about our lead product, ELA-101, briefly. So it's what we've termed a next generation and off-the-shelf therapy for what we call CD19 positive blood cancers. So I won't go through this in detail, but suffice to say the blood cancer market is quite large. There are hundreds of thousands of cases per year, multiple deaths. CAR T products have had success and they are moving up to second-line therapy, but there's still no off-the-shelf CAR or cell therapy that targets blood cancers that has been approved worldwide. So just talking through some of the data here, this is some experiments that were performed and published in a prestigious journal, Cancer Cell. And what we're looking at here are a series of mice on the top 2 rows. It's day 0, so they've actually been engrafted with a particular lymphoma model. So anywhere you can see the colour in those animals, that's actually the cancer cells inside of the animals. And then down the bottom, we're actually looking 3 days after treatment. So keep that in mind, it's 3 days, so it's quite a short time period. And in the first column, it's essentially salt water. The second is unengineered T cells. The third is unengineered iNKT cells. And then the fourth is the equivalent, or closest equivalent to what's approved and in market today, a CAR T. And then the last column is Arovella's ALA-101. So what you can see quite clearly, in the bottom 2 rows, you see there's quite a lot of cancer cells persisting in the control groups, but quite clearly there's been a strong eradication of cancer cells in the iNKT cell treated animals. So great that it works quickly, but we need to know that it works over the long term. That's what we're most interested in. So this is a very similar study design, only now we've got a lot more animals included in this particular experiment. On the vertical axis, we're looking at how many animals are actually alive. So 100% would be all the animals alive, down to 0%, which is all the animals have died. And the horizontal axis, we're looking at 90 days for this experiment, so a much longer time frame. So all the controls, black, blue, and green, they have all died in the order of 40 to 60 days. The orange line is the CAR T animals, so you can see there's about 60% of the animals are alive at 90 days, which is really good data, and that would have led to approvals for some of these products eventually to go into clinic and obviously to get approved and in market. But when we look at the red line, it's quite clear that the iNKT cells do perform better than the CAR T equivalent. Now this is just one more finding that we were quite excited by here. It's 4 of the 19 mice that were treated with our therapy. They actually look, you can see this is the 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's a time series for each. At the earliest time point, they looked like all the cancer cells had been eliminated. At about the 20 to 30 day mark, you can see the colour starting to reappear, and it's coming back really specifically in the brain, which was confirmed. And so the natural thought here is they'll die, and that will be the end of, or the data on the previous slide won't look as nice. And what happened instead was the animals actually underwent what we've termed a spontaneous secondary remission. So the cancer cells were actually removed a second time with no further dosing. So it suggests that the iNKT cells are able to remain and eradicate the cancer cells a second time. So very quickly on this program, so where we are, we've demonstrated already this approach has robust potent activity or anti-tumour activity. What we're expecting is that the therapy will be safe. iNKT cells have been used in clinical trials. The CAR or guided missile targeting CD19 has also been used and it's an approved product, so we're not expecting safety issues. And we're working through the manufacturing where we're able to make multiple doses per batch. So the next step is aiming next year to take this therapeutic into clinic. So I'd just also like to pivot a little bit and talk about our approach to solid tumours and why this is important. Approximately 90% of cancer diagnoses are some form of solid tumour, so we do think this is a pretty important area to target, both from a societal perspective but also a commercial opportunity. And the 3 strategies we've got on the far your left, it's to license novel targets, which we've been doing. The second in the middle is to armour the iNKT cells, so we actually improve the platform overall. And the third is to work with unique groups and create partnerships, so we're actually combining therapeutic strategies. So for the first strategy, we announced about 6 weeks ago or so that we actually in-licensed a novel guided missile or CAR from another company based in the US. It's termed Claudin 18.2. The really nice thing about getting these new targets that direct the cells to different cancer types is they can actually now fit into our workflow for manufacturing. All that we need to do is, imagine this is the CAR that we would like to get in. All we need to do is get a new lentivirus, which is something we can get a manufacturer to produce, and that goes into the workflow. So we've worked very hard to create this manufacturing pathway, and we'll continue to leverage that for each product that we continue to develop. So why are we interested in Claudin 18.2? It's become a very exciting target across the oncology sector. Some people saying it's as important as HER2. We know that it's also expressed in a range of different cancer types like gastric cancers and pancreatic cancer, and it is a validated target. So there is a therapeutic, a monoclonal antibody, which is a type of therapeutic strategy that will be approved in January 2024. It extends lifespan by 2.5 months, and it's predicted to have peak sales of 600 million to 1.3 billion. So we're quite excited to have a cell therapy, which we would expect to have better activity than a monoclonal antibody going after this target. So not surprisingly, the gastric cancer market's also set to be quite a large market by more than 10 million by 2030s, but that's just gastric, not accounting for all the other cancer types where this could be applied. So the second strategy, as I mentioned, is to armour the cells or enhance the cell platform itself. So we're doing that through use of what we call a cytokine technology, and we have an option for this particular technology already from the University of North Carolina based in the US, and that actually was optioned from one of the inventors of CAR iNKT cell biology, so very well credentialed. And then again, similar to the targeting strategy, we can incorporate this technology into our manufacturing workflow so we don't have to repeat a lot of what we've already done. So in terms of how this works, we presented some data earlier in the year. We've been able to show that it does actually work by increasing the number of iNKT cells that are present in the animals to the tune of 10 times more cells actually present in the animals and actually doing what we want them to do. And as a result, the hypothesis is that leads to better anti-tumour activity. And that's exactly what we've seen for a particular solid tumour. In this case, 75% of mice treated with our CAR iNKT cells that contain that technology are alive at 61 days versus 0% without that technology are alive at 49 days. So we know it has the benefits that we want. And if we are happy with our due diligence, we would look to in-license that into the company, integrate it into our platform. So the last strategy, as I mentioned, is to work with innovative biotech companies in Australia. So we're working with a group called Imugene, who have a very neat onCARlytic virus. And what they do is that virus has been developed to essentially infect solid tumour cells. And once it's done that, it will naturally divide, replicate, and burst some of those cells. But for the ones that it doesn't, it actually tags them with a little green bump indicated here that's called CD19. And our CAR iNKT cells will recognise that CD19, so they'd be administered second. They come in over the top, and they can destroy any of the cancer cells that haven't already been eliminated. So excited by that program. We had good in vitro data earlier in the year, and looking forward to getting in vivo data before the end of this calendar year. So we do have an expanding pipeline. As I said, we've got our ALA-101, which we're developing for blood cancers, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and so forth. We're partnering with Imugene. That gives us a range of opportunities to target a variety of solid tumours. And as I said, we're looking to bring in novel targets like Claudin 18.2, which also gives us a range of shots on goal for solid tumours, and also integrating our cytokine technology to enhance the platform overall. So very quickly, the milestones for fiscal year 2024. Big one for us is to take the product next year into clinic. So what we're working through at the moment is optimising and scaling up the manufacturing before first half next year, completing a manufacturing run to then be in a position to create all the regulatory documentation for submissions to the FDA or TGA. And for the preclinical side, getting data for the Imugene study, as well as the looking to in-license the cytokine technology if our due diligence is appropriate, and of course generating proof of concept studies, data I should say, for the additional preclinical programs that we've got underway. So very quickly, I'll just touch on our financials. So currently capped at about 80 million. We have, at the end of September, we had 5.3 million in the bank. We just got our R&D tax rebate a couple of days ago, which was 1.9 million or so. We're very happy with our register. We've got a range of supportive investors on the register, like Merchant Group, as well as another range of high net worths and smaller institutional investors. But we're, unlike a lot of the biotech sector this year, we're delighted that we've managed to buck the trend, which has been pleasing, and we're looking forward to endeavour to continue that over 2024. And I'll finish here very quickly. So this is just, again, I think this helps, obviously for someone that's developing a cell therapy. You can see there's quite a range of transactions that have continued to take place in the cell therapy sector, some only a few weeks ago. and they are sizable upfront payments. There's some in the order of hundreds to $200 million payments or equity investments upfront. And again, I think that just shows us that we're in a very exciting sector. There's still a lot of investment. You can see there's quite a number of repeat offenders on that list, like AstraZeneca, Genentech, and so forth. So we're still expecting this to be a really important part of the ecosystem moving forward. So very quickly to summarise, we have an exciting, novel, off-the-shelf iNKT cell platform. We think that will improve a lot of the manufacturing and logistics challenges that plague the cell therapy sector. iNKT cells, CAR iNKT cells I should say, have multiple properties that we think are really beneficial for both blood cancers and solid tumours. We're excited that our lead product is advancing through the manufacturing stages and looking forward to take that to clinic next year. We continue to expand the platform, and we'll continue to make that a priority, not building sideways, but building towards a very strong targeted platform. And we think for all these reasons that we still sit well positioned for growth. And with that, I'd just like to say thank you again very much for taking the time and for your attention. I'll be delighted to take questions.
Thanks, Mike. Do you have any questions for Michael? One of you.
Thanks for that. Not to digest. I realise it's early days, but is there any reason why the Cloud 18.2 could not be used for the onCARlytics program with imaging instead of the CD19? Is that something that potentially is a synergy?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, that's a good question, and there's two ways you could go about it. Do we actually think about putting one of the other targets into the oncolytic virus that iNKT cells always recognise? So no matter which CAR we use, we could combine it with Immunogene's onCARlytics platform, or just say switch out the CD19 for Cloud 18.2. So I kind of like the idea of having even us having a dual CAR, so we could have a CD19 and a Cloud 18.2. And if you think about it like a Venn diagram, a lot of the tumour cells will have Cloud 18.2. The ones that don't, force them to have CD19, and then you've just got hopefully a good representation of the entire tumour.
Mark, how are you going?
Good. Immunology. Do you know anything about immunology, Mark?
Just a little bit. Mark Nashdown, Melbourne University.
Nice
so,
to meet you.
Interested. I'm not totally familiar with the work, but what mouse model are you using there in those earlier photos?
Yeah, so it's an NSG mouse, so they lack the functional immune system.
Right.
But we have a lymphoma model that produces both CD19, and I didn't talk about it for brevity, but also CD1D, which is a natural target of iNKT cells. So while we wanted to do that as well, is that both of those targets are expressed on a few human lymphoma models.
Second question, what cytokines are you loading your vector system with?
We're not saying that just yet, but stay tuned.
Very secret.
Yeah,
And Michael,
it's just patent issues and so forth.
which company of those competitors? Which company is probably the leader in the iNKT space?
Look, it's probably Ming, just by virtue of the fact they've got a product in clinic. Having said that, I think they've gone with a product that may have a difficult time. It's unengineered iNKT cells, so it doesn't have the guided missile to strengthen it against cancer cells. So they're doing that in solid tumours, and there's a few other things that they're not doing, which bypasses the requirement for any chemotherapeutic intervention up front, which is it's a good goal. I think it's, as I said, it's setting the bar for them really tough in terms of what they might see. If they see good data, that's phenomenal. But what they will get out of that is excellent understanding and information about so I didn't say that, but in that trial they're giving 1 billion iNKT cells, so 1 billion, it's a huge amount, from a healthy donor to 32 unmatched patients, and so we're able to see no GVHD. So that's great. That's a really important piece of data that we can leverage as well.
Okay, please take Michael.
Sorry,
One more question.
one more.
Yep.
Are you planning to do your phase 1 in Australia?
We haven't set it concrete where we're going to do it, but Australia is obviously a very attractive place for the R&D tax rebate. So we're manufacturing our product at Cell Therapies, which is embedded in the Pachacz. So I think there's a lot of strengths that we could leverage, but certainly our focus will be to look external and to markets like the US through the FDA.
Oh, thanks.
Thanks.
Right, our next company presenting is PharmAust. and CEO is Michael Thurn. Now, Michael's a very experienced drug developer. I'm not sure which companies you were from, but I know you've taken a few drugs through. I know, were you at Cytopia?
Cytopia
And
Spinifex.
And you got those drugs through, or the Spinifex one through to the, help get through to the market?
No, not through the market.
Not, sorry, to registration?
No, it's not through registration.
Oh, isn't it? Still going?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So Spinifex was acquired for 700 million
Yeah.
at phase 2
Yeah.
by Mars.
Okay.
So it hasn't quite got there yet.
And so Michael's now CEO of PharmAust, which is doing a bit of everything. Human and animal cancers, and also treating motor neuron disease. I think the motor neuron disease, is that more of a recent sort of application of the technology?
Yeah, so about 2 years. Yeah.
About 2 years, okay. All right, so please make Michael welcome. Thanks.
Excellent. So my name's Michael Thurn. I've only been with the company for about 10 weeks now. So I recently come on. I'm the new CEO of PharmAust, and one of the things that I did initially after joining PharmAust was to shrink the number of programs that we have going at the moment. So we really only have 2 programs going. And obviously the most exciting one is in motor neurone disease. And that's where we're at a point now of being in a position to potentially get an orphan drug disease designation off the FDA early next year, and then take that forward into a phase 2 clinical study. So I'll just touch on our veterinary program very briefly, to the point where our veterinary program now is in canine B-Cell Lymphoma. Canine B-Cell Lymphoma is the third main cancer type in canines. And we've moved to a point now where we've done a couple of clinical studies, pilot studies, to now be in a position to potentially get conditional approval from the FDA through the Centre of Veterinary Medicine. Now those phase 2 studies basically showed that we were on par in terms of efficacy with the last product that was approved for B-cell and T-cell lymphoma, and that product was Laverdia. The difference with our product is that we're not really a cancer, we're not an anti-cancer agent from the point of view that we're cytotoxic, unlike most of the treatments that are available for oncology use in dogs or in the veterinary area. Our product basically causes disease stabilisation. So the animal is able to live with the cancer and have a high quality of life and high quality of function. Moreover, the dog is able to be treated at home. So the owner can bring the dog home, not be worried about being contaminated by touching the dog through the cytotoxics that they receive to treat the tumour. They're able to take the animal home, treat the animal with the convenient pill as opposed to an intravenous administration, be able to throw the ball, dog retrieves the ball, brings the ball back, high quality of life, high quality of function. So it's a real new treatment paradigm in the way that that cancer in dogs can be managed. So where are we at? Well, we're at a point now where we're engaging with the FDA, the Centre for Veterinary Medicine, to open an investigational new animal drug application. So exciting times on the dog side, and the data point that we're really aiming for is quite recent one. So as I mentioned before, the product that we compare favourably against that offer a much higher quality of life and quality of function, Laverdia. Laverdia, it was sold to Dectra Pharmaceuticals, one of the main veterinary pharmaceutical companies, for $64 million, and that $64 million was just for the US and some royalties. So that kind of gives you an idea of where we're placed with our canine B-cell lymphoma product. We have to basically do a field study and then move forward, being in a position to command a decent size, a decent size deal, one that we've already got a data point around. By far the most interest in PharmAust is really around our motor neurone disease program. And one thing that I forgot to mention at the very beginning is that the same product is being used, or the same API, monepantel, for both B-Cell Lymphoma in dogs, but also in motor neurone disease. And monepantel is a repurposed drug. It is an approved veterinary product for removing worms in sheep. So it's a intestinal dewormer. For motor neurone disease, we're using it through its mechanism for promoting autophagy, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But some of the telltale statistics for motor neurone disease is that once you're diagnosed with motor neurone disease, the average life expectancy is 27.5 months. So remember that number, 27.5 months, not a very long time. Even worse still is that there's only 4 drugs that are approved for motor neurone disease, or ALS, as it's more commonly known in the US. Those 4 drugs, the first one, Riluzole, is a generic now. It was approved back in 1995. It only prolongs life by 2 to 3 months. Remember, 27.5 months, 2 to 3 months. It took drug developers, companies, 22 years for the next drug to be approved. So in 2017, a drug called Redicarba was approved by the FDA. It prolongs life by 6 months. So it took them 22 years to get from 3 months to 6 months. The latest drug that was approved, Rilibriol, and that's really the blueprint for PharmAust. So Rilibriol was approved in September last year by the FDA. It was approved on phase 2 data. So that study there was in 83 patients. 83 patients, and the FDA approved it through their accelerated approval program. It only prolongs life by 8 to 9 months. Pretty low bar. So this is where PharmAust is focusing on, to basically emulate Rilibriol. So be in a position to run a phase 2 study with the FDA, a small phase 2 study, and then receive accelerated approval. So where are we at with our phase 1 study? So our phase 1 study, the MEN study, has been going now for about 13 months. And about 4 weeks ago, we put out a press release to say that we had completed dosing in our last cohort, cohort 4. And now we're moving into a stage of cleaning the data. There's a follow-up visit, and then obviously doing the statistical analysis to be in a position to release the results in Q1 of next year, top-line results. So this study involved 12 patients. Remember, before I said 27.5 months is the average life expectancy from diagnosis with someone with motor neurone disease. So this study's been going for 13 months. When they entered the study, the 12 patients, the average was, from diagnosis, 24 months. So it's a pretty significant achievement. It's even more significant when you think about what we've been seeing in the study. And what we've been seeing in the study is none of the telltale signs of disease progression in motor neurone disease. So with someone with motor neurone disease, the first telltale sign is that you have difficulty swallowing. Our product is supplied as a pill. Some of the patients have to take 9 pills. No difficulty in swallowing. The other telltale sign is respiratory distress. So most people end up dying from respiratory paralysis. So most patients with motor neurone disease move on to a ventilator. None of our patients have had a requirement for ventilation. So exciting times, to the point now where we've finished that study. All the patients, the whole 12 of them, want to be enrolled on an extension study. So we've been caught in a position where we've had to rapidly file a protocol for an extension study, so those 12 patients can all go on to that extension study. The other aspect of this study is that it's fully funded by FightMND. So FightMND is Victorian-based motor neurone disease non-for-profit charity organisation. they put about 900K towards that study. So where are we going next? So for motor neuron disease, we're moving into a phase 2 scenario. So I mentioned before, motor neuron disease, orphan drug designation. We're in the position now to hopefully receive our orphan drug designation in January next year. So we've already been to the FDA and submitted that orphan drug disease designation. Then we'll have between the orphan drug disease and then releasing our top line results for our phase 1 study, we hope to have a pre-IND meeting with the FDA and finalise our phase 2 study design. That phase 2 study design, we hope, is going to be the study that we receive accelerated approval around. So in terms of this slide, what does it all mean? How do we fit into this? So the rare disease market, this is an incredibly powerful slide. And from the point of view, it gives you an indication of what PharmAust could potentially command now or even after phase 2. So what it tells you is that rare disease is a hot commodity. It tells you that pharmaceutical companies are flocking to the rare disease market in droves. In the last 6 years, on average, there's been 100 deals done a year in rare diseases. Those deals have grown significantly over time, to the point where the biggest biopharma deal that was done last year was Amgen taking over Horizon Therapeutics. They had two rare kidney disease programs, 27.8 billion. These are big numbers. Is it unrealistic to think that PharmAust could be on this slide? No, it's not. Based where we are today, what the phase 1 studies are showing us, we're in with a great chance of being a significant deal, to the point where the last deal that was done for motor neuron disease was done in September this year. September this year, was it done on a phase 2 asset? No. Phase 1? No, it was done a preclinical deal. A preclinical deal, Takeda, Japanese global giant pharmaceutical company, bought a preclinical asset from Acuristem, San Diego-based company, preclinical, 580 million. Huge numbers. So what have we got to look forward to? So on the B-Cell Lymphoma side, the veterinary product side, we're doing the necessary engagement with the FDA to move that product through to being in a position to start that trial early next year, the field trial, to move towards getting, ultimately filing a new animal drug application. So the B-Cell Lymphoma is quite a straightforward program, and one that can be funded with a limited amount of money to do the field study in order for us to proceed with that filing. On the motor neuron disease side, we've got multiple milestones coming up over the next couple of quarters. The main one being early next year, orphan drug disease designation, then obviously having a pre-IND meeting with the FDA, finalising our phase 2 study, and then our top line results coming out for our phase 1 study. We'll open an IND and then hopefully towards the middle of next year start our phase 2 study. What I'll end on is potentially where we're going with our phase 2 study. So unlike a lot of other diseases, we have an opportunity to be an arm in an already up and going study. So remember before I talked about Roluzol. Roluzol, it was approved in 1995. The next drug that was approved was in 2017. 22 years. 22 years, that's a disgrace, really. 22 years it took for that next drug to be approved. 2017, 2015, a group of neurologists key opinion leaders in the US got together and said that's not good enough. Went to the FDA and said, look, we want a program. We want to put in place a program, a platform trial that will allow new promising drugs that are coming through the motor neurone disease to potentially get accelerated approval through the FDA. That platform trial is called a Hailie platform trial. It's ran out at Mass General. We have a shot of being an arm in that study. If we are successful in being an arm in that study, it means the study costs 30% less. The time to run the study is 50% less. There's an opportunity to get funding from the NEALS Consortium, which is Northeastern ALS Consortium. Very good opportunity for PharmAust. Open to questions.
Well, thanks for that, very interesting. The two-part question, first in relation to the dog trial. I understand historically the companies have a few problems in trying to get the dogs into trials in a timely fashion. In earlier trials, is there, you're more confident this time of the field study that you'll be able to get the 50 or 60 dogs required in a timely manner?
Yeah, so great question. And the answer to that is we're going to the US.
Okay, cool. Secondly, just in relation to the MND trial, appreciate obviously the headline data is coming up hopefully fairly shortly.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, prior to the release of peer-reviewed scientific data, is it possible for the market to hear anecdotes from the families and patients, even anonymously, as to how they're finding it? So, I mean, it's obviously you've only got 10 or 12 people, but it's such an impactful disease on lifestyle for patients and families. That's something that people would love to hear if it's possible.
Yeah, unfortunately, love to do it, but yeah, we're hamstrung. We can't give access to those patients. Believe it or not, some of those patients are actually shareholders in the company, but we just don't get. It's just not ethical to do that. We certainly can give access, and Suzanne Mathers, who's the principal investigator, and also Professor Dominic Rowe at Macquarie, they've been very helpful, and obviously have been helping all along the way. And really, without that help, I think this study could have been twice the cost. They've invested so much of their time into that study, and making sure that it was submitted in a timely fashion. There's no issues with ethics and so forth, and obviously the patients and recruiting them to the point where Susan's recruited nine. So,
Michael, is it the same compound you're using?
yeah, it is. Yeah.
So what's the mechanism of action in motor neuron disease?
Yeah, so it's autophagy. So autophagy is a natural cleaning process that all mammalian cells use. So the big issue, it's one thing that I probably should have highlighted, the big issue with motor neuron disease, and for that matter most neurodegenerative diseases, is a build-up of toxic protein. So the neuron lacks a way of removing that toxic protein, breaking it down into macromolecules, and then being used again. So it's kind of like a cleansing system for cells. Autophagy comes in, forms lysosomes, goes in, breaks down the proteins into macromolecules. So stopping the build-up of toxic protein not only has applicability to motor neuron disease, it has applicability to Alzheimer's disease, Huntington's disease, Parkinson's disease. It's a common pathology that's among all those neurodegenerative diseases.
How does it work in B-Cell lymphoma in dogs?
Same thing. It has ability to switch on apoptosis, but also autophagy.
I've got a vague recollection that the target for the anti-helminth is the colchicine receptor. Is that correct?
No, it's the N-acetylcholine. N-acetylcholine receptor. It's a subtype, which isn't present in humans.
And Michael, what sort of data are you expecting to get out of the phase 1? What are you going to be measuring?
Well, it's exciting for us because I mentioned the Hailie platform trial. So the Hailie platform trial was designed by largely the neurologists, but a group of very clever biostatisticians, and most of the drug approvals that have happened for motor neuron disease have relied heavily on statistics and comparing against natural populations. So there's a database, it's called a PROACT database in the US. There's one being built here in Australia, there's one in Ireland, where you can compare the survival based on a number of endpoints and match it precisely with the normal, a patient population that has motor neurone disease, what their progression was, and your one patient, in this case 12 patients. So we should be able to see, generate survival curves based on natural history.
And what unfortunately probably follows a pretty consistent curve, is it?
For natural history, yeah, it does. Yeah, but that's the power of the having the biostatisticians, and we've been fortunate enough to link in with the biostatisticians that present this data for approval to the FDA.
We've got time for one more question, just over here.
At this stage, are you able to tell us how it compares from a safety perspective, so adverse events, side effects?
Yeah, so like we saw in the dogs, high quality of life, high quality of function, that transfers over to the patients with motor neurone disease. In fact, we've only seen 43 adverse events, and 3 of those have been related to the study drug, or possibly related to the study drug. So that it's a fantastic safety profile in a patient population that's quite vulnerable.
Okay, please thank Michael Ron. Okay, our next, Verity, just get the slides up. Our next company to present is Adherium. The CEO is Rick Leglater, who lives by the motto, has passport will travel. I think Rick's from US originally, then you came to Melbourne and you worked for Universal Biosensors for about 2 years, and now you've gone across the Tasman to work for Adherium. Is that, you're based in New Zealand?
No.
Are you based here? Okay, all right. So Adherium is has a smart inhaler technology which they're seeking to commercialise. So please welcome Rick, everyone.
Thank you, Mark. And thank you to FB Rice and Monsoon for hosting this, and to my other 2 presenters, Michael and Michael, well done, thank you. And to all of you for coming out and listening to the story here for Adherium today. It's we're at an exciting time. Our headquarters, when I came here in 21, established the headquarters here in Melbourne. And originally the company, started out in New Zealand, and we're at a great stage now for being able to commercialize this product that we've been working on for several years. And I want to share with you, I think this is a wonderful time for investors to come on board and get involved in our company, because we're right at this commercial stage now for being able to scale up and generate significant revenue for investors. So just a show of hands, how many of you here have asthma or have family members that have asthma? Oh yeah, okay. So that's what we're about. Just to give you a little bit of show and tell here for a moment, is this is an inhaler from AstraZeneca. It's called Symbicort, and this is our sensor, and it's very simple to just snap the inhaler into our sensor. And this one also is another different form factor. This one is Ellipta from GlaxoSmithKline, and this is our sensor, and we just snap it in. What this does then, we're a digital health company, and it takes just an inhaler that has no information or no data, and we make a smart inhaler so that we're able now to track if the person is taking their medication, because medication adherence is a big problem, and also how they're taking that medication. And so the interesting point is that we're at an excellent period here in that we have the technology to cover 91% of the top 20 branded inhalers in the US. There's reimbursement from Medicare and from private insurers in the US. We have also the technology for the clinical validation so that there's been over 100 publications where our devices have been used over the time. 180,000 of our devices have been used in clinical studies, so there's clinical validation about being able to reduce exacerbations, improve medical adherence in both pediatrics and also in adults. And we have the go-to-market strategy, which I'm going to focus on here today, which is being able to focus on large customers in the US and be able to scale up. And I've got a case study that I want to show you in a moment. And there was quite a few hands that went up in here for asthma and other likewise respiratory disease like COPD. And it's a big market. And I'll show you some data around that, in that 500 million people worldwide have asthma and COPD, over 500 million, and 51 million in the US alone. So I'll talk about our addressable market and our serviceable market going forward. There's definitely a shift to digital health, and I think that it's indisputable that if I ask you the question, is there a future in digital health in healthcare, the answer is clearly going to be yes. There's just so many challenges. We've seen it through the pandemic. The pandemic has created tailwinds for us, with telemedicine coming on board, with the challenges with the shortage of medical personnel and an aging population. So this technology layer to do remote patient monitoring to keep patients healthy and at home is so important. So what we're here about for today is taking better care of patients and making money doing it. Making money for you, our investors, and take a look at our stock and get on board, because I think it's a great opportunity right now to come into the company. So this is I showed you our device. We also have an app and a portal, and we are deploying this currently at our partners in the US. But we're also flexible in our partnership, because if people want to use their own app and their own portal, we've got an SDK, we've got the API to do the integration. And the key thing that we're doing is, it's the sensor, but it's the data. The real value here is the data that's being generated. And we own the data, so that you can't generate the data unless you've got this little device on that inhaler. And that data is then being able to use to see that people are taking their medication or helping them to take it, and then also how they're taking that. So we're quite flexible when it comes to, whether it's an integration or whether we use our app and our portal as we've currently got it designed. Here's the road that we've been taking on this pathway to commercialization. And so you see on the chart here, the app was actually already started in 2018. We got the first 510K clearance for our next generation sensor with physiological data. What this does is inspiratory flow rate. So it monitors how fast somebody is breathing in their inhaler. So like on Symbicort, someone is supposed to breathe in between 35 and 60 liters per minute. If they breathe in too fast, it ends up in the back of their throat. If they breathe in too slow, it ends up in their mouth. But in either case, it's not ending up in their lungs, which is doing them the treatment that they should be getting. And so being able to combine the usage and that inspiratory flow rate allows us to get a much better picture about how that patient is doing and what the clinicians can do to improve that patient management. So we've got 14 510Ks, so we've got that's how we're able to cover that market with the 91% coverage of the top 20 branded inhalers. And we now are also moving into the commercialization stage. We just signed in the last months 2 major partners, and our partner selection and our go-to-market strategy are large players in the US. So medical groups, hospital systems, so that we're able to bring our technology to a large population base of patients, as well as be able to scale up and generate significant revenue for the company and for our investors. And so we signed Allergy Partners and Senta, and we now have also enrolled the patients at both of our partners, and they're being remotely monitored now, and we're going to be scaling and expanding that across the US in the coming months. And I've got a case study that I'll show you here also that's going to give a better idea about the opportunity here that we have for generating revenue through our devices. So we're providing the clinical benefits and the economic benefits, because not only do we help to keep the patients healthy and at home, but we reduce the burden on the healthcare systems. So doctors and hospitals, they're better able to reduce the cost, and it's a $34 billion cost in the US alone per year, and reduce it also then for both the hospital systems and medical groups, but also we have reimbursement from Medicare and from the private insurers in the US. And then we also are reducing the cost for the insurers. So it's a unique opportunity that I've never seen in my career, where we actually can create a revenue center for the business by having reimbursement from Medicare and Medicaid. We can also reduce costs to the healthcare system by keeping people out of ED, keeping people out of a hospital and out of ICU, keeping them healthy at home. And we can then also provide better clinical benefit for the patients at the same time. It's really like a trifecta that is rare to see in healthcare, that we can do revenue, cost reduction, and clinical benefit all at the same time. And that's why these different partners in the health ecosystem are able to benefit from what we're bringing to them today. So we're targeting large partnerships to scale. And we signed Allergy Partners, which is the largest allergy and asthma medical group in the US. Over 300,000 patients, 130 sites in 20 states, and the first patients are onboarded. We also signed Centa, which is based in Atlanta, Georgia, 48 locations in 6 states, and also just this month we've also just onboarded the very first patients for remote patient monitoring, and the program is underway and launching. We're also scaling then into hospital systems, and this is where we will also be able to access very large patient groups, because for those of you that are familiar with hospital systems in the US, they tend to be quite large. You might think here like of Ramsay, in Australia, but in the US, they're big, a lot of big hospital systems, and so there's a lot of opportunity to go at, and this is how you can get to those 51 million patients that are out there that have been diagnosed with asthma and COPD. So here's how we make money, and we know how to make money, in that we are selling the sensors, but we are also have a SaaS model and data fees. So recurring revenue on a monthly basis for generating and transmitting the data. And that's what Medicare and the private insurers reimburse for, is generating and transmitting that data. And then there's further reimbursement for clinical intervention by the clinicians, by the respiratory therapists, by the physicians, to be able to also provide treatment and advice for those patients and get paid for doing that. And this is so important in healthcare. Doctors don't want to do it for free. Of course, nobody wants to do it for free. You have to get paid for it. And through that reimbursement scheme, that's how we can get paid. If we go to the insurance companies, then we go to a per member per month model. And as I mentioned as well, we can also look at value-based incremental pricing because of the cost reduction that we're bringing to the health systems by saving them money by keeping their patients out of ED and out of hospital. So we've got multiple pathways that we are pursuing here for revenue, and this is where we're already starting with the SaaS model and the fees that we're getting from the sensor sales. This is a screenshot of what our app looks like. Our platform is called Hailie, so like inhaler, so Hailie, and it includes both the app, we have a physician portal, and we also have the cloud storage, so that we can also look to monetize the data in the future using predictive analytics and being able to to predict if there's going to be an exacerbation by a patient and keep them out of hospital before that occurs. So this is where I was talking about the large potential market. So the U.S., there's 51 million people that have been diagnosed with asthma and COPD, and 8.5 million are severe and difficult to treat. All of these 51 million patients are eligible for remote patient monitoring. Some of them are well maintained. They use their inhaler on a regular basis and it's not an issue, but still being able to monitor them is available. And and then we get to 80,000 patients. This is our market validation for getting to cash flow positive. So it gives you an idea of what we're striving for here. And now let me go to this case study. I'm going to talk about Allergy Partners specifically. So they were founded all the way back in 1977. They've been around, for a long time, well established, and over 300,000 asthma patients in their database. They're secondary care. So their GP has already referred them to a specialist, and they're falling into that severe and difficult to treat category. 130 sites in 20 states, and we're starting out in North Carolina at their corporate headquarters. They've hired staff, and they are now implementing, and we're working with them side by side to implement this program. And what's really interesting is when you're implementing this kind of digital technology, you have to be involved in all the aspects of the business. We're changing the clinical workflow because we're not expecting patients can't breathe and call up the doctor and say, "Doctor, I need to schedule an appointment, when can I come in?" We're already starting to monitor those patients and see that they're needing to be escalated before the patient could even give that call. That's a different kind of clinical workflow. And so then, as we start to implement all of this through the billing cycle as well, so that they can bill Medicare, get paid for it, this is all the things that have to happen in order to implement the technology. So looking ahead, there's some key points that I just would like for you to take away. We have established market-leading technology. We're near-term cash flow positive with what we're rolling out commercially. It's a repeatable, scalable business, and we've got a strategy here in place with our go-to-market approach for operational scale. So it's a great time to see technology coming to the forefront to help people and make money for investors that have come and supported our company over the time, and now is a great point as well to join in. So I ask for you to take a look at us and look at investing in Adherium, because I think we're at a very exciting point for commercialization. Thank you.
Understood. We got some questions for Rick. Martin?
Yes.
So obviously you're focusing on the US market. So I was wondering, why did the Europe market get the NHS contract grow so quickly in 2023?
So we have a program as well. There's not reimbursement in the UK at this point in time. However, we're actively working to to get reimbursement by NHS. However, one of the key things that we were able to do is secure an award for a study that is pediatric asthma at the University of Leicester, and actually patient enrollment has begun as well. And we see that as an important contributor toward the reimbursement opportunity in the UK.
At the patient level, what resistance have you identified for the use of the device, and how can you overcome it?
Yeah, so that's a great question, because I think the technology is first of all is that you have to you need a smartphone, you need to have the app, and so the resistance is going to be natural, just because if you think about like here, I have on my phone my Victoria app, and during lockdown we had to scan that in order to go into Woolies or Coles, right? So that it's this kind of thing. I'll tell you what the differentiator, though, is, if people do it on their own, like have a Fitbit or your Apple Watch, you have to be self-motivated. But when your doctor gets involved in that discussion with you and the onboarding process with the physician, takes place, this is what puts people over the top, and they're more likely to listen to their doctor and their clinicians, their respiratory therapists and nurses, and that, I think, is a differentiator in how we're going to market and what's going to be able to get those patients on board, and then, importantly, keep them on board, because the patient sees that somebody cares for them and they're looking after their well-being, and that is what helps then for those patients to remain sticky onto the platform.
Martin,
So
question?
what does your IP estate look like? What's covered? What does your IP cover?
So we have patents in jurisdictions around the country. We also have trademarks. So our IP covers the technology that's in the sensor, and there's also, I would say, significant amount of know-how in here, because the company's roots historically have been in clinical trial services, and so even though this is a very small package, we have a contract manufacturer in Thailand that does this, and even though it looks small, there's a tremendous amount of electronics and know-how that's packed in here, and that's the differentiators: the patents, the trademarks, and I would say the know-how of the people that have designed this. Yeah.
Just behind you. Mark, can you stand up first?
Yeah, thanks. Just wonder if you can elaborate on that rollout. Is it like a 2 to 3 year type of rollout you see? And also, you mentioned that you're in partnership with big companies in the US. Is it like a royalty stream, or what's the nature of your, if you like, your cut of the? So I'm assuming that the big companies will take a decent portion of that. So just to try and understand the business model.
Yeah, sure. So first of all is we will sell the sensors, and then we get a monthly data fee. So when the data is created and generated and transmitted, patients on the platform, we charge for having those patients on the platform. So you can think of like a subscription model, like you might have with Netflix or Disney Plus or something like that. And then additionally for their rollout, and what's going to happen is we're linked with them very tightly in order to clinic by clinic work with the doctors and work with the clinicians in those clinics in order to be able to bring the program to and expand that. So our plan is now, because we've got these contracts with Senta and Allergy Partners, and we've got more commercial development underway, is to hit the mark and scale on these opportunities that are currently in front of us, and do that rapidly, over the next 12 to 18 months, and then continue to scale up from there as we expand to other medical groups and hospital systems.
We're over time. We'll just have one more question.
How robust is the unit? I mean, how can you drop it and will it still work? And how better is that from Ventolin?
It is robust in that we've produced 180,000 of these over the years, and the amount of returns or claims that ever came through on warranty is minuscule. Of course, like anything, once you get it out into the general public, you never know if they drop it in the toilet, or step on it, or those kinds of things. So those kind of things can happen. However, the cost of the device is not that large, because the value here is really in the data. So we're more like, we have healthy margins, more like software company rather than the device itself. This is just the enabler to get that data that's the most important and the high value. Yep, thank you.
Please thank Rick, everyone.
Yeah, thank you very much.
So I hope you got some investment ideas or found that interesting. Thanks to FP Rice and the team for the drinks we're about to have and for putting up the venue. Thanks to Rudy and the team for organising today. You can watch all this on Monsoon's YouTube channel. You've got a YouTube channel already. You on there? No. Okay. I think BioShares might have to get a YouTube channel. All the rage now, I hear. Okay, so thanks everyone. I hope you found that enjoyable and interesting and useful. And join us all for a drink, and the CEOs, I believe, will stay around and answer your questions. So see you next time. Thanks.